Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, depending on your respective time zones. And I welcome you all to my today's presentation. I would first of all like to thank the Hobby Club for providing me this platform. And we'll be going through the history of aviation through matchboxes. Uh, First of all, about myself, I'm Kaustubh Shezwalkar, engineer. I studied engineering and I worked in IT industry and retired recently. I collect matchboxes and I have about 13,000 plus matchboxes in my collection. And I have given some presentation. I participated in few exhibitions and with that introduction, I think let's get started with my presentation. In the presentation also, we have something about matchboxes. So let's begin our journey. As I told you, I collect matchboxes, and usually people are familiar with the matchbox that is shown in the first picture. However, I collect other items also, that is matchboxes, matchbox labels, and matchbooks. And all these platforms, all these types of matchboxes are used to convey different information. Uh, Many, I mean, other collectors, they collect matchboxes depending on the theme, or they classify those matchboxes as per the animals, birds, fruits, flowers, numbers, vehicles, advertisements. However, I decided to take a different path and I collect matchboxes based on these themes. So my themes are calendar through matchboxes, history through matchboxes, space exploration through matchboxes, history of matchboxes, and fun on matchboxes. So out of all these, we will be having this presentation regarding the history of aviation, which I consider as the initial part of space exploration, because first man learned to fly on the earth, and then eventually as we advance technically through science, we dreamt of visiting other planets. So like any good story, our story starts long time ago. So the early man saw many birds flying around him, and he must have longed to their ability to fly, because he must have been chased by other animals, and to run around he must have faced difficulties. So flying was something that he must have considered very special, very divine, and probably that's why some of the first entities that man considered having this ability, special ability of flying, was in the different gods and goddesses and religious figures. So as you can see here, all these matchbox labels depict either some gods riding birds or having wings, or even without wings, they were flying around. So this is something is not specific to India or Hindu religion. This has been observed in many other religions also. However, I do not have matchboxes regarding those gods and goddesses, but there are mythologies all over the world across different cultures, and these mythical creatures, they can be horses, or they can be lions. All those mythical creatures having wings are there across all over the world. So these mythical creatures, then eventually it it turned into fantasies, and these fantasies had wings or winged creatures as humans also, or some other animals also. We can see here the cupid is there, then a boy is there, then lion is there. So this ability eventually was given to other inanimate objects also, and therefore there are things like flying carpet, then flying cars. So all these flying things, they were imagination of man, because man didn't have that ability, and somehow he wanted to fly or go around the world. So all these were imaginations of man, and eventually when man learned about science and technology, through science and technology, various authors, various writers started imagining things, and they started writing science fiction, in which they imagined man not only flying on the earth, but some of them imagined going to other planets also, visiting other planets. And one of these renowned science fiction authors was Jules Verne, and he has quite a few books, which in which he has written about flying to other planets and going across solar systems. So this imagination also caught up with media, and as we can see here, there were some TV series about flying and going across the planets. So one of these early series was Star Trek, in which, as the its title says, uh, I mean, the man was supposed to visit many planets where no man had gone before. So, depending on based on many science fiction stories, there were some TV series which showed journey of man from planet Earth to other planets. Now, along this journey, there were some adventures, there were some disasters. Some movies like, in addition to TV series, there were movies which showed travel to other planets. Now, this is one matchbook about the movie Alien, which showed the scary part of the journey to other planets. In addition to that, there were quite a few other movies also which showed the scary and gory part of the journey to other planets. However, there are some movies which actually showed the science or drama or adventure part of it, something like Star Trek. So this actually showed the adventure part of it, and all these matchboxes depict the Star Wars movies, various episodes. Now this Star Wars, according to Professor D.N. Perkis, I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but I suppose it is D.N. Perkis, who studied Shakespeare's literature, and he found so many similarities between Shakespeare's Henry plays and the Star Wars series, that he feels that the Star Wars series was inspired by Shakespeare's literary works. I don't know whether that is true or false, I haven't actually studied or read about those similarities. But I found this interesting, and that's why I thought this should be conveyed. Now, this is about imagination based on different scientific theories and actually some making some progress. Now, while talking about going to the planet, the first step will be to flying on the Earth itself. And different people thought of different ideas as to how to fly on Earth. And people across world, they imagined various various tools or various things with which they can fly. And these are different ideas of all those peoples they tried. And obviously you can see in these labels some of them might have worked, but not necessarily all of them. Some of them might have ended up badly. For example, during these attempts, some succeeded initially and eventually there were accidents. So not every time each one of them succeeded in flying. But as you can see here, the famous Hindenburg Zeppelin that burst, and that was the biggest accident in aviation history at that time. So not everyone succeeded in actually flying up and going around, but eventually, as we know, the Wright brothers, they succeeded in making a flight in 1903, and that was the first sustained flight of a powered heavier than air aircraft. They were able to fly for about 6 kilometers. And although Wright brothers are credited for this invention, there are claims from all over the world, and there are some stories that other people also tried and for some time succeeded in actually flying, but not all of them are depicted on the Matchbox label. But Wright brothers flight is captured on Matchboxes. So in addition to this, there are other Matchboxes which tell us about this story, the success. Now, once man was able to fly, the initial Kitty Hawk, that was the aircraft that was flown by the Wright brothers. The initial design eventually evolved into better designs, and different types of aircraft were designed and made depending on their purposes. And then the journey began. Initially, the Wright brothers were able to fly for about 6 kilometers, but eventually, man was able to go around the Earth non-stop. The distance also increased. So all these are different types of aircrafts. Those were designed and created as the science progressed, and we can see the entire journey in all these Matchbox labels. Like in any field, once you discover something, you find something, then people start dreaming of doing things faster, better, sooner, and all those kinds of things. So when man found this aeroplane, we can say as a new toy, people thought of sort of making records using the different types of plane. And on these matchbox labels, we can see there were the first oldest airplane is there, then first airmail, then round the world flight, across the Atlantic, and all those sorts of records. People started making all those records with the help of plane, and some of them were actually attempts for records, or some of them just happened as the record. Like when someone had an idea of using aeroplanes for transporting the postage, that became the first airmail in United States. So that's how some records were tried purposely, or some of them just happened. So here some of the matchboxes depict all those different records. Some of them are first, the fastest, and all those sort of things. Along all these records, we have some legends. Charles Lindbergh was the first person to go across the Atlantic in 1927. He flew from New York and landed near Paris. So effectively, he crossed Atlantic as a solo pilot. Although there were some people who had already flown across Atlantic, but they were in team. So Charles Lindbergh was the first person to cross it as a solo pilot. Then, like in any field, women are not far behind. Lindbergh achieved this in 1927, and then we have Amelia Earhart. She achieved it in 1932. She also followed the footsteps of Lindbergh, and she also flew solo across the Atlantic. Uh, then, during one of her attempts to go across the globe non-stop, she eventually went missing, and it is still a mystery what happened with her. But before that, she had already crossed Atlantic, and she is the first woman to cross Atlantic solo. So during all this journey, I would say we eventually came up with this design, the Concorde, which flies faster than the sound, the speed of sound. And because of this Concorde, one can go transatlantic within few hours. So I believe within 3 hours or so, one can go from New York to London, 3.5 hours. So what Charles Lindbergh took much in much lesser time, now people can fly from New York to London. And then now we have some special aircraft. Uh, as we all know, the Air Force One, that is the call sign of US President's aeroplane. Similarly, we have Air Force Two, which is the call sign of US's Vice President's plane. And the Marine One is the helicopter that is used by US President. So these are some of the special aircraft we have, and I have these all matchbooks of these aircraft in my collection. So this is about the journey, or the history of flying on the earth, and I consider this as the first part of flying across the globe, flying across the planet. So that's why this is the first part of the space exploration through matchboxes. And in my next lecture, I will cover the rest of the journey, that is astronomy and flying to other planets, how man succeeded in visiting other planets. So far only moon, but how we achieved that. So that will be covered in the next lecture. And now I am open for question answers. You can shoot any kind of question regarding matchboxes, of course, or possibly also about uh, aviation. But I'm not an expert on either of these things. But I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities based on whatever I have studied or researched for this presentation. So, be it matchboxes or aviation, you can shoot your questions. I mean, if you think of any questions later on, you can send an email to me. My email address is kaustub007 at yahoo.com. Or I would also appeal all of you to join for my next presentation next week. It will be, as I mentioned earlier, it will be the journey to other planets, the astronomy and other aspects of science related to flying to other planets, and actually how the space war was going on. Any question is welcome as long as it is regarding matchboxes or aviation for now. And if you do not have any questions for now, well, I think we may end the session here. and I will appeal all of you to please join my next week's presentation next Saturday, same time, and we will fly further beyond Earth to other planets and how it all happened. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can always email me and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. Oh, thank you, Ullas ji. Thank you for your appreciation. Also, thank you, Parag. Well, I think the time is almost up. So if no one has any questions, then let's stop here and we'll. Okay, I think let's stop here for today. And thank you guys for joining my today's presentation. And I hope you also join me next week, same time, uh, to go through the history of flying to other planets. So until then, bye and see you again.